So recently the American government filed a case against an Indian national, Nikhil Gupta, for allegedly plotting a murder of an American citizen. And in this video, I will go deep into the details of this case and tell you the truth that very few will. So stick till the end. Okay, so the American government has accused Nikhil Gupta for hiring undercover police officers posing as criminals to murder an American citizen, Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. Now, we don't know much about this Nikhil Gupta guy, but from the statements made by India's Ministry of External Affairs as well as the details of this case, we can confirm that Nikhil was somehow involved in a nexus of organized crime, narcotics and weapons trafficking. According to the details of the case, Nikhil was contacted by an Indian government officer who claimed to be a senior field officer trained in intelligence, battlecraft and weapons. Basically, Nikhil is saying that he was contacted by an Indian spy to murder Pannu. Now, we don't know whether Nikhil was actually recruited by an Indian spy or not. However, throughout the case filed by the American government, we can see that Nikhil tried really hard to prove that he was in fact in contact with an Indian spy. In one instance, on 12th of June 2023, in a video call to American undercover officers, Nikhil showed himself sitting in a conference room with Indian spies who were wearing business suits. You know, like they show in the movies. Which is really bizarre considering the only people who wear suits in the month of June in India are lawyers and judges. It is so hot here. And frankly, why would spies would expose themselves to a person who is about to commit a crime in a foreign land? Food for thought. Another thing, why would the so-called spy tell Nikhil that he's a spy? Isn't the whole deal about being a spy is not to tell the world that one is a spy? It could be possible that Nikhil was hired by a gangster or criminal posing as an Indian spy to kill Pannu, which is a strong possibility here because Indian government has no apparent interest in killing Pannu. Why this is, I'll come in a second. So allegedly, the so-called Indian spy hired Nikhil in India to find someone in America to kill Gurpatwant Singh Pannun. Pannu is a Khalistani terrorist whose aim is to separate the state of Punjab from India. He regularly gives violent threats to Hindus and Indian diplomats in the West, and as of recently, he threatened to bomb an Air India plane this November. However, despite his violent threats, no action is ever taken against him. Just take an example here. If tomorrow a psycho posts a YouTube video threatening to shoot a school in America, will the American police ignore such person and let the person go? Or will the police take such threats seriously and take legal action? I'm sure you know the correct answer. So the question is, why is the US government not taking any actions against Pannu? For which there is a simple answer. That is, Pannu is an agent of the CIA. In a meeting between Indian and American spy chiefs, the Indian intelligence chief told CIA director that the only reason why India doesn't take any actions against Pannu is because he is batting for Langley. Langley is where the headquarters of CIA is located. Despite being a CIA agent, Pannu is all bark but no bite. His organization, Six for Justice, is a one-man show. He tried to conduct a referendum to separate the state of Punjab from India and Canada, which he completely failed in. But at the same time, Pannu has deep contacts with other influential Khalistanis in Canada, one of them being Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian citizen who organized terror training camps in British Columbia in Canada and funded targeted killings of Indians on Indian soil. Nijjar will come again in this story. For now, the CIA keeps in touch with Khalistani terrorists as a tool to destabilize India. Why does CIA do such a thing to its most important strategic partner? Because it is the CIA. It does this with everybody. But the bigger point here is that there are no solid reasons as to why Indian government would want to kill Pannu. That is something to think about. Okay, let's get back to the story. So apparently the so-called Indian spy asked Nikhil Gupta to hire hitmen in US to kill Pannu in exchange for $100,000 as well as pulling away police cases against him in Gujarat. Now let's pause here for a second. While the first request seems possible, the second request is strange because people with Gupta surname are mostly concentrated in northern states of India of Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Punjab. Gujarat doesn't have many Guptas. Now with India there is always an exception, but by mentioning the state of Gujarat, the case is somehow trying to create a loose link between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is from Gujarat and has a lot of influence there, with the alleged assassination. However, any person familiar with Indian governance knows that Indian government at union or federal level for the Americans has direct control over the police of Delhi. and not of any other state such as Gujarat. As a result, if the Indian government wants to file charges against any criminal, it usually does through Delhi police, which it has full control over. And it's a very general knowledge in India that all the big cases are uncovered by big police organizations like Mumbai Police, Delhi Police, Punjab Police, UP Police. Gujarat Police doesn't make much news in the country. Anyways, it could happen that a case was filed against Nikhil in Gujarat Police, but the mention of Gujarat here certainly reeks of propaganda. Back to the story. So Nikhil contacted a person in America who he believed to be a criminal. But now we know that that criminal was actually an undercover police officer. So this undercover officer helped Nikhil contact another undercover officer who pretended to be an assassin and promised to kill Pannu for $15,000 advance. Throughout the month of May and June, Nikhil remained in contact with the undercover police officers on behalf of this so-called Indian spy, coaxing them to assassinate Pannu as early as possible, with the only exception that Pannu should not be killed when Prime Minister of India is in the US for state visit. That was on 21st to 23rd June. But unexpectedly on 18th of June, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was shot in Surrey by unknown gunmen. To this incident, Nikhil said to his US undercover cops that Nijjar was also the target, implying that Indian government was involved in this assassination. And as proof, he showed them photos of Nijjar's dead body in his car. Now this is from where Justin Trudeau's infamous credible allegations come from. However, there are many loopholes in Nikhil's claims about involvement of Indian government in Nijjar's death that certainly ruin Nikhil's credibility. First, as a standard practice, covert operations are compartmentalized. Even within an intelligence agency, agents don't know who is involved in what project. So for an Indian intelligence officer to tell a petty criminal like Nikhil about a high-profile covert operation in Canada seems unlikely. Secondly, to show proof that it was in fact Indian agents that killed Nijjar, Nikhil showed pictures of Nijjar's dead body in his car to undercover officers, which he claimed to have received from his so-called Indian spy. However, we know from the CCTV footage of Nijjar's death that was watched and published by the Washington Post that the unknown gunmen who shot Nijjar did not take any pictures after the murder. Instead, they drove off quickly in a sedan after the shooting. So the picture Nikhil is talking about was definitely not taken by the gunmen, but most probably taken by any of the bystanders who were in the area who came after the gunmen left. And that picture must have gotten shared across India and Canada through WhatsApp, and after hours made it to Nikhil through his so-called Indian spy. Which brings me back to my earlier point that the person who contacted Nikhil desperately wanted to prove to him that he was in fact an Indian spy. This time by showing him an image which by then the entire Punjabi community would have had. Right now Nikhil is in the US, where he was brought after being arrested in Czech Republic on 30th of June. And the Indian government has appointed a high-level committee to look into all of this. So what's the conclusion here? First, the Indian government has very low interest in the death of Pannu, considering his links with the CIA and lack of any strategic value. Second, Nikhil most probably got played by a person pretending to be an Indian spy. Nikhil was most probably trapped by gangsters who Pannu had some sort of conflict with, or any of Nikhil's enemies in the criminal world, or in a dirty spy game by Pakistan's ISI. You can never rule out Pakistan in cases like these. Third, in this case, if this so-called spy is caught, regardless if he is an Indian agent or not, the Indian government will expect America to comply with Indian demands, such as handing over David Headley, the American double agent who was involved in the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. And needless to say, the people of India are in full support of the actions against Khalistanis, considering they killed hundreds and thousands of people, including our beloved Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Lastly, the relations between India and US will remain strong, considering that the American ambassador to India was in Arunachal Pradesh when this case came out, signaling to China that US stands firmly with India despite its differences. As a side note, before ending, I like to share another observation. This story about assassination of Pannu was first shared by a gentleman named Dimitri in the Financial Times. I feel that this was the exact story that was presented before Justin Trudeau that pressured him to speak at the parliament on that infamous day. Now, whether it was Dimitri/Financial Times that pressured Trudeau, or if this story was first given to some other publication and was asked to pressure Trudeau, we don't know. But what is certain is that someone really wanted to see how India would react to such an allegation. and by now you all know who that someone could be. Thank you everyone for coming out to my vlog. I will see you soon.